Oh, look, we're slightly early. It hasn't gone 5 yet.
Should we go away and come back in again?
No, no. I'm like that. I don't know about you, James, but I'm like that. I would rather be early than late. What about you? How are
Oh,
you?
absolutely. I'm terrible. All the clocks in our house are actually a couple of minutes fast because I like arriving and just doing things a little bit earlier. I'm totally with you on that, Maria. How's your week going anyway?
No, it's going great. Thank you very much indeed. I'm scared that I'm already here at Thursday and I feel I've only
Hmm.
achieved the work till Tuesday. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I know exactly what you mean just now.
You know exactly right.
Yeah.
Well, we're at 5, so we can talk about what we're going to do. So, what are we going to do
Yeah.
today? What have we got planned?
We have a phenomenal guest. This is actually, you just get such good guests, Maria, into the show. I'm really excited that we have Lynne Franks, OBE, joining us today. And we're going to be talking about sustainability as it relates to events. We're going to be talking about archetypes, female
Mm.
archetypes as well. And then we're going to move on after that, and we're going to be talking about recurring business or kind of just doing a bit more with less clients, basically, is kind of what we're
Yeah,
talking
client
about.
relationships. Yeah.
Yes, relationships. So super excited. So thanks everyone for coming and joining us. You're at This Week in Events. Please feel free to leave any questions and comments as we're going throughout the show. The links that we mentioned in today's show will be available at thisweekinevents.com if you go there. So Maria, do you want to introduce
Right,
our
shall I
guest?
introduce our guest properly? So,
Yes.
our guest has been recognized as one of the world's most influential lifestyle experts, predicting and creating societal, business, and consumer trends, initiating and promoting major events such as London Fashion Week and Green Consumer Week, as well as advising major corporations on women's engagement. She's the creator of Beehive, the world's first women's business club in partnership with Regis, was chair of Viva Women's Radio, put on the UK's first women's festival, What Women Want, and founded Seed, the women's leadership platform based on her global bestseller, The Seed Handbook, The Feminine Way to Do Business. And in 2018, rightly so, she received an OBE for her contribution to business, fashion, and women's empowerment. So really, really delighted to bring in Lynne Franks.
Hello, thank you very much.
And this
Hello,
is where
Lynn.
I'll
Great
tell
to
you what,
have you with us today. What a beautiful background as well.
Yeah,
Much better, much nicer than my green screen. That's
and
very
it's
nice.
real.
And it's real, exactly. It's real.
you've ruined the illusion, James. So, Lynn, thank you so much for joining us. And I mean, in the introduction, sort of, I mentioned that you're known for predicting trends, and I think we've got to take advantage of that and say, you know, what trends are you predicting now and post COVID? Would you say?
Well, obviously, it's a very interesting time because we know we're going to be let out very soon, and we're going to start having a few more choices about the way we work and the way we live. And I think that we are going to see some tremendous changes once the dust settles. I think for a lot of people, working from home has its advantages. I think we're going to see a lot more online than we ever saw pre-COVID. And I think the way we're going to be doing events such as the ones that you guys organize or speak at or I speak at are also going to be very different. I think we've found out how easy it is to be global sitting in our home studios with our green screens on or with our backgrounds. So that's certainly going to stay. And as far as the event business is concerned, I think it's a real positive, actually. If you think of all the time you're going to save traveling across the world and we can actually be connecting. I mean, I'm speaking, it's International Women's Day on March the 8th. So I'm going to be doing some things in Saudi Arabia. I'm doing some stuff in Kazakhstan. I'm speaking at a Kazakhstan conference, doing a workshop on women's empowerment on a sustainability conference there. And I'll be doing it all from Somerset. It's extraordinary, really, isn't it, when you think about it?
Yeah, absolutely extraordinary times. And actually, it's great that you've touched on International Women's Day and women themselves. And you're saying we need a more feminine, balanced style of leadership. And we're all in the speaking industry, in the speaking world, and language is really important. We think language has an important part to play in that.
I do. And I've been talking about the feminine way of doing business, whether it's through entrepreneurship or corporate or third sector, whatever it may be, for 20 odd years now, if not longer. And it is about the language. I mean, semantics is they're so powerful. Words are so powerful. And I've certainly grown up in a society where the male, if you like, description of everything, whether it's chairman or how we see deities or whatever it may be. You know, God is a man, the chairman's a man, life is all about workmen, and actually it's time to have a shift. That's from that perspective. There's also the perspective of, if you like, soft power, how we communicate. In fact, we were talking earlier this week, weren't we, about the word driven, about being the words that get used in business, especially in training, about goals, aiming for those goals. And actually, if we go on a more gentle sort of words use, and I'm now trying to quickly think of the words that would take the place of driven, but it's actually going towards our values, working towards our values, working in collaboration, working in community. It's a very different way of looking at it, and we still can achieve what it is we want to achieve, but we do it in a more heartfelt way. I mean, the whole world has been living in a great state of fear over the last year, one way or another, and every time we turn on the news, pick up the newspapers, we're looking at data, we're being driven more to fear, using the word driven there. If we can actually come from a much more loving, empathetic, compassionate place, still, as I say, achieve whatever it is we want to achieve, but definitely without that pressure, without that stress, we'll be happier and healthier.
I'm all for being happier and healthier. I don't know about you, James. How are you feeling about that?
Absolutely. I think, and it's. I mean, I know there's that phrase starting to get used called the Great Reset, which is like a World Economic Forum phrase, which I'm kind of okay with to a certain extent. But I see. It's great seeing that there is a reset, and it feels like there's a cultural zeitgeist kind of going on as well, especially younger generations coming in who are just saying we don't have to do it the way that it once was.
I mean, the Great Reset, I have huge issues with. I don't know.
Well, no, exactly. I mean, that's,
they want us all to not own our properties anymore, and it's not a very nice feature of the world. We're all worker drones. And there was a conference on in Mexico by some slightly more alternative people a couple of weeks ago called the Greater Reset.
That's nice.
In tune with that one, which is how we can be much more compassionate, we can be much kinder, we can be more caring in business and in life.
So when it relates to the events, I mean, you're doing these large kind of online events, so it doesn't really matter necessarily the size of that. It's different dynamics depending on size. When it starts coming now back to people finally being able to get back out again and do in-person events, you've spoken on those big stages, you have thousands there as well, but you also are very skilled in running more, facilitating more retreat style, which are much more intimate as well. Where do you see us, from a futurist standpoint kind of perspective, where do you see us going? Because you mentioned that word fear earlier, and I sense there is maybe still a little bit of fear in even getting together for big or small events.
Yes, well, I think the classic way of presenting on a big stage with a big crowd of people with a PowerPoint behind you, just talking data, really has had its day. I've felt it's had its day for a long, long time. People want to hear stories, that's for sure. Whether it's about business or success or inspiration, it's about storytelling. I remember starting to use the word storytelling about 10, 12 years ago. I was going to write a book about it, and then I got distracted, and suddenly I see the word is everywhere. So we want to hear stories, but it's also about the intimacy. I agree. It's going to be a different format. Workshops, which were, as we talked about the other day, the peripheral of big conferences, are going to go much more central. And the skills of facilitation, as opposed to talking at people, is going to change. It's about being with people in smaller groups or intimate groups, experiential. And of course, if we are on Zoom, we can talk, or we can talk on a panel, and then we can put people in breakout rooms where they can talk with each other. I mean, a lot of my work is with women, as you know, and it's very clear, and has been for a long time, that women really like to participate with what's going on. They're not really interested in being talked at for hours. They go on their phones pretty fast if they are, but if they are part of the conversation. And I think for women and men, we all need to be part of the conversation these days. And I think we're going to see a big shift in how events are put on. I'm very excited about it. It's what I love.
Your stories are amazing. We are kind of storytelling creatures. It's how we transmit knowledge, cultures over many decades, and it's what we do, I guess. You mentioned there that in terms of the women's leadership side of things that you do as well. You've spoken about this idea of archetypes.
Yes.
Which kind of like, I hear archetypes, I think like Jung and people like that as well. But in the context of storytelling, you talk about this archetype. Can you tell us about this archetypes theory that you have, and maybe how it could be useful to maybe some of the speakers that we're watching just now, for example?
Yes, absolutely. So I have been developing the concept of power of 7, which is based on 7 archetypes, which we all have in us, the storyteller being one. And really, whether it's ancient ways or modern life, are very relevant. So the storyteller in ancient ways and inside us is the sharer. If we really go back a few thousand years, sitting around a fire, sharing the history, sharing the culture of our tribe. In modern days, the storyteller can be on Instagram being an influencer, but it's about being able to communicate. And of course, as a PR, as I was for so many years, it's very much part of my psyche. But the other aspects of the 7 archetypes are also very relevant, and I do believe we all have them. Seed sower is the creative, the ideas aspect of ourselves, and that's also sometimes. I'm looking at my own seed sower archetype in me, too many ideas, but that's the scattering of the seeds, sowing of the seeds. The alchemist is the producer, the strategist, the grounded aspect of ourselves, which takes those seeds and makes them into reality. The storyteller we've talked about, medicine woman or medicine man, which is the aspect of ourselves which takes care of our well-being, the well-being of our projects, the well-being of our community, in all senses, whether it's growing herbs that will naturally heal different illnesses, or it's just generally looking at the well-being from all perspectives. Sky dancer is the relationship builder, the relationship builder that comes from grace, where you're introducing people not always because you're going to get something out of it, but because that's your natural way, bringing people together. Space Weaver is the artist, the creative, the architect, the designer. And Wisdom Keeper is the aspect of ourselves that brings all of what we're doing together, contains it, and make sure it's aligned with our values. So I was saying earlier that in a classical business sense, if you like, the Wisdom Keeper is the chairman or chairwoman of the board. But in the way I'm looking at it, it's all leadership. It's circular. It's not linear. And it's all inside us first. So it's about getting those aspects of ourselves in harmonious balance, which I do lots of workshops and retreats and talks. And then how we can create pods, as I call them, of 7, where people take different roles and they can change those roles over when they're in a different group. And they can work together in leadership, creating an initiative, a business, part of a business, community initiative particularly. So it's been delivered everywhere from sort of Glastonbury Festival to corporate boardrooms. And it is amazing how people identify very quickly with, I'm a storyteller, I am a seed sower. They know who they are. So I'm very excited with the whole Power of 7 thing. As I said, I've done it for a number of years and it's growing. And I think it could be useful for this new way of workshops and facilitations. I'm happy to share and train people up in it anytime.
Wow, fantastic.
And I think that's interesting. I mean, could you imagine if, for example, boards had those different elements and that I mean, I know when we last financial crash, a lot of the things that I think Matsukato, the economist, came out and she said a lot of the things were because there was too many of the same people basically on those boards. If you had that blend, it just feels like it would be more resilient as an organization, as a business, if decisions were being made almost like the Edward de Bono, the 6 thinking hats or 9 thinking hats or whatever. You have people coming from different perspectives with different viewpoints.
I think it's far more powerful. And yes, I think it would work very well for boards, for management. It is a circular management style, which again, I've seen coming for a long time, a new system. It is systemic. It could be taken into a very sophisticated level of management, as well as used at grassroots for groups of women that want to get together and create something new in their community. It's very flexible, actually. And as you say, classically, people will attract in the same sort of people as themselves if they're putting new people onto a board. Whereas this way, you make sure that you are covering every area, if you like, of the storyteller. So, or medicine woman would perhaps be HR, and alchemist might be the financial director, or whatever it may be. But it's just making sure that, as always with everything I do, that values are central to every one of those archetypes.
Yeah.
We've had some comments, actually.
Yes.
I wanted to, I don't know if you can all see them, but we have a mutual friend here, Lynn. We've got Peter Cross, who's saying 2 of my favourite females in one place. So I'm sorry, James. Hello, Peter. We do have a delay on the messaging, so excuse us for the delay. Now, Gary Horse says, business needs to finally tap into the talent they recruited and developed. Can I ask whether Lynn considers hope as a passive or active leadership skill?
I think it's a very active leadership skill. I think it's no good sitting in your room depressed thinking, I hope it's going to change. Hope is an action skill, and it's a positive skill, and it's a change maker skill. And I hope anybody with any kind of responsibility considers themselves a change maker as well, which is perhaps having all those 7 archetypes in one. That makes a change maker.
Okay, lots of support here about storytelling. Paul Griffiths, Kate Broad is saying here. Someone's disappointed in my backgrounds. You haven't named yourselves. Show yourselves. We've got Charlotte Broadbent is saying very interesting to hear. Oops, moved. Bear with me. Very interesting to hear about the shift into smaller groups, experiential participation, as well as the importance of facilitation skills.
Maria, wouldn't it be interesting? You think, traditionally, that in the scale of things, it used to be like the keynote speakers, let's say the seed sowers, I guess, it would, like the people that just kind of go in, they would get paid the ridiculously high money, whereas the facilitators would be paid less. Let's say at a conference, they would be doing the side rooms. Wouldn't it be interesting if that reversed?
Oh, I think a little doggy's gone past. That was lovely. So I think what happens is actually that's not always the case, because it depends who the facilitator is, of course.
Yeah.
Because if it's a facilitator who's really an expert in that area and is going to bring incredible value, then that facilitator could well be paid much more than the keynote.
Like we had Ron Kaufman. Yeah, we had Ron Kaufman a couple of weeks ago. I know he's very good at that, with working like full day events as well.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So okay, I'm getting a sense of this. And Maria, I do have to wonder, in a lot of the clients that you work with and the speakers, do you get a sense, because you think like we're all going to be natural storytellers, but I'm wondering, do you work with any speakers who are more like seed sowers, or more like that, the medicine woman or man that maybe have slightly different archetypes?
Yeah, I think absolutely. And I think you've got to focus on what you're good at and just be the best you can be of yourself, really. I don't think you can sort of try and be something that you're not. And although we are all naturally storytellers, not all of us are very good at them. Some of us aren't very good at sort of structuring our stories, and maybe we need to work on that. So I mean, I'm a bit of a waffler when I tell stories, and if I'm telling a joke, for example, as a story, I always forget the punchline.
But also, I don't know, Lynne, what your thoughts on this, on the storytelling side, but I struggle to tell stories in certain formats. Like, everyone like doing, let's say, Twitter, 140 characters. I actually always feel I don't get it. I can't get it. Where some other formats feel much more natural. Do you have a natural format that you like to tell stories in?
Well, I mean, if you start bringing social media into it and all the restrictions of social media, that's a whole nother thing. We've got to be such versatile storytellers now, because we've got to be able to tell the story in 140 characters. We've got to be able to make a film for Instagram in less than a minute. We've got to be able to do a Facebook Live and talk, as I do once a week generally, and talk for 30 minutes without even knowing what I'm going to talk about when I start. So, just assuming something is going to come in, which it always does. So I think the versatility in storytelling is something else now. But standing up or sitting down, as we are now, as a speaker, I think it's important to get the notes together, not the story in detail. But I used to think it was very easy just stand up and talk from the heart. And I realized that if I actually do a little bit of organization and research and knowledge first, the stories will just flow very, very easily. Because I have so many stories and I forget so many of my stories, because when I was running the PR agency in the 80s and the 90s and 70s, I mean, the stories were just every second of the day, some other extraordinary, there was David Bowie in the shop and this is what happened. And then, because we had a shop as well. And then all these different things that were going on. And then when I'm talking to, actually quite often on Facebook, when I'm doing the lives and I just go off on some kind of zone somewhere, these stories come out of my mouth and I think, oh my goodness, I'd forgotten that happened. I'd forgotten this had happened. So that's one of the advantages of being the age I am. You get a lot of stories backlogged that can come forward and be used when they're useful.
Yeah.
And
Fantastic. Lynne, we could talk to you all day, but we've rapidly run out of time. Is there a question from the audience very quickly? Or there's always a slight delay. Last question for Lynne? Or is there a thought you would like to leave us with, Lynne?
Well, I do feel, you've mentioned it briefly, but I do feel we're going to move into a much more feminine way of doing things. Equality is what I work for. Gender equality, racial equality, every kind of equality across the human race is what we should be working towards. And once we get there, whether it's in business or in life, we will create a better world together. And that's what I'm working very hard to contribute to, and I'm sure we all are. So, you know, wherever we stand up and open our mouths, there is a responsibility, I think, to share a sort of a new positive approach to however this world is going to look like in a few months' time.
What a lovely thought. And what's the best way for people to contact you after this if they would like to be in touch?
Well, I am all over social media, but I guess the best way is to contact my website, which is lynnefranks.com, and you can see the spelling for Lynne here, or seednetwork.com. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. You find me here on LinkedIn. I am ubiquitous.
Everywhere. You're omnipresent. You're omnipresent, Lynne.
Omnipresent Lynne Franks.
Like social media. Lynne, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to catch up with you. And I can't wait to see you in person as soon as we can.
Likewise. Thank you so much, both of you, for hosting me. And it's been a real pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow.
Hey. That's so big. No.
Lynne is one of these people you could just have. I would love to have an entire evening over dinner with someone like Lynne, because she does. You get a sense she's got so many stories.
I'm sure if you cook, you'll probably
Somerset. Is it Scrumpy? Is that Somerset? Maybe I need to take some Scrumpy down with me, some cider. So let's give a quick thank to our sponsors for this week in events. London Speaker Bureau is the world's only global speaker bureau. They have offices in 18 countries around the world. I've been talking a lot today about speakers, but we've also been talking a little about facilitators, which is a slightly different skill that's often required for those. So if you are looking for a speaker for your large event, virtual event, in-person event, or maybe it's a smaller, more kind of facilitating, maybe some more kind of executive level work, then head over to londonspeakerbureau.com. They represent the creme de la creme of the speaker world.
Including Lynne. So fantastic. So we were having a chat earlier this week, and we were sort of analysing the year that has been, which has been horrific, and this year is going to be another tough year for everybody. And we were talking about the fact that for you, and you were very honest about this and open about this, and thank you for sharing, and it's given us our topic, that what has given you great continuity in your business is the relationships you've had with your clients.
Yeah.
So we thought we might talk about that.
Yeah, this idea of repeat business is not for everyone, and so I guess I have to put something out here that I know some speakers who they never want to speak for a client more than once, because their whole thing, actually we're talking about the seed sower, they are seed sowers. They want to go in, keynote at that conference. They're going to be amazing. They're going to blow people's minds, open their minds up to new possibilities. And then they want to go. They don't want to do any follow-up work. They don't want to do anything else. And then they'll move on to the next company. And you can totally build a speaking career just doing that. There's not a problem with that. For me, I personally like working a little bit deeper with clients. And I actually quite like doing multiple events. And so we were speaking the other day, the thing that's really it's been great for the business and kept our business doing well, and it's also kept my sanity, is the fact that we've got a number of clients who've just booked me repeatedly over the past 12 months. And these were people, some people I worked with before the pandemic, and then we ended up doing now virtual things with them. Others I'd never worked with before, and they came on the first time, and we built a relationship. And there's a great speaker in Singapore called Brenda Bentz. I think she probably worked at Coca-Cola, and she has like a 95% repeat booking rate. It's ridiculous. Wow. So you don't actually have all this stuff about marketing you're speaking, which is important. if you're that type of speaker that you can build those relationships, you don't have to do a lot of fancy marketing. It's really about relationship building.
You've got to be good, though, James. Of course, you've got to deliver and be good, because you're not going to get repeat business if you're not good. But
No.
I mean, bureaus build their businesses on relationships,
Totally.
of course, because you want the clients to come back again and again, and you want the speakers to also have good relationship with. So for us, the relationship thing is so important. And I sort of I was writing a few notes as to, what tips would I give to somebody who said, what in your experience has helped. And I think, for me, the speakers that are able to build great relationships are those that really personalize the experience for the client, that really go in and understand the client's needs and tailor their content to them. So it's not, the same thing every time, but it's specifically to that audience. I just made a couple of notes, and they make it easy for the client to work with them as well. It's not like you have to work with me in this way because this is how I work. If the client says, well, could you be a bit flexible on that, or could you do it this way? They're flexible and easy to work with. They're also organized and responsive. They do what they say they're going to do. So if they say, I will send you my presentation on such and such a date, blah, blah, they deliver it on such and such a date. You don't have to chase them. They ask a great question. And they say, what does success look like, so that they can deliver it? And I think all of those things, in fact, many of those things are important, whether you're going to go back and have a longer term relationship or not. But they're vital if you want a long-term relationship, I think, and we can add more and more. And
no, I mean, those are amazing. I mean, I think a lot of it comes down. I think about it in terms of a trusted advisor, being in the center of that trusted advisor. I had a situation recently where a client I'd worked with before, and they were asking me to do a thing, and I genuinely knew in my heart I'm not the best speaker for that particular thing, and I just said to them in the bureau, I'm not. I think there's these other people I think will be better at that. Now, am I saying no to money doing that? Absolutely. But isn't that in the wider best interest of the client? Yes. So I think if you're going to do that, if you're going to have this more, there's a couple of ways I would think about it. Is first of all, it only works with certain types of clients. They have to be larger clients, multinational companies. So you can go and do, let's say, the Asia Pacific conference, but then you can also do their North American team, their European team, their EMEA team as well. So it has to be an organization of a certain size, or it has to be in different industries. And then the way to think about it is put your client in the middle, and then think, okay, rather than what usually happens as a speaker, we put ourselves in the middle, put the client in the middle and think, okay, so keynote is one part that serves them, but what else do they need? Well, they also probably need maybe some training things. Okay, maybe some training things. Maybe they need some executive coaching, consulting with their top people. Maybe they need some online, you start putting those things around you, and it doesn't always mean that you have to do all of those things, but maybe there's partners that you work with to help you on that. And that client will come to you as that trusted advisor because they want you to work with them, and they trust you. They trust you to have good taste and good judgment when it comes to understanding what their requirements and what their needs are.
But actually, I'm not sure that the client has to be a certain size. Actually, I think you can do a lot more with a client, even if they're a smaller size. I think the important thing is that it's not to emphasize the fact that you're a speaker, but to emphasize this is what I can help you with, and have different ways, as you said, have different ways of doing that. I mean, I know speakers who will speak, but also will consult and will help deliver results, or might become non-executive directors, or might coach, or might mentor. And that doesn't matter really on the size of the organization, but it's on what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
But so I mean, we could talk about this all day.
No, I mean, I think it's a fascinating thing, and it's not to put down the idea of speaking, because I'm at my core, I still consider myself a speaker. I might have to use different terms, an expert and other things that I have to use because this is where the trends are going. But instinctively, I feel of myself, like what Lynne was saying, as a storyteller. That's who I feel to my core. And so I might lead on that. That might be the tip of the spear, getting into the organization. But there's other things around that. It's just the top of the iceberg. And so if you can build those other things, you don't need lots of clients. You need probably 20 great clients. That's it. Can you get 20 great clients? Absolutely.
Yeah, you see, there's one place I disagree with you, James.
Yeah,
I'm feeling
good. Disagree with me.
You know, see, I don't think you should consider yourself a speaker. I think speaking is what you do. It's not who you are. I think you're more,
Yeah, I know. I get that.
everybody who's got a voice is a speaker. Let's be honest.
I get that.
So you need to differentiate a bit.
Yeah, I think, it's the way, because I come from the music industry originally, so I often think there's artists who are primarily stage performers, and I want to go and see their gigs. I don't really want to listen to their albums that much. Their albums are okay, but seeing them live is amazing. But there are other people, like, fantastic. I just want to listen to their album, like Daft Punk, who just split up. Great albums. Probably wouldn't want to go and see them live necessarily. So this is, I come at it from that perspective. But I totally understand what you're saying in terms of the thinking of yourself not just as a speaker, and really thinking of yourself, what is the problem you're trying to solve? Yeah,
I think it's too limiting. Brilliant. Okay, well, James, so shall we talk about our tool, gadget, or app of the week? What have you got for us?
So I've got a guest that we have on our show, which is coming up next week, our new show, the Super Creativity Podcast. He was very kind to come on as a guest, Seth Godin. And I've just recently finished reading, for the interview, I finished reading Seth's new book, which is called The Practice, which Maria has a copy of there. Funnily enough, shipping creative work. Thankfully, it's not a green cover.
Oh, we should have done that. I should have handed it.
Oh, that was it. Oh, other way. I should have brought my book.
Wow.
But
gosh.
I think this is a great book, even if you don't consider yourself necessarily a creative or a creative professional, because it's just about creating a practice in your life which is focused more on a practice, doing things every day, and getting less focused on the outcome. And I just love it. It's a great book. I would highly encourage people to go and check it out. We'll put a link here in the show notes. There's so many gems, and Seth's just such a wonderful writer as well.
Well, I mean, you talked to me about it, so I had to order it. I haven't read it yet, but you've ruined because I put all my books in alphabetical order, and they all fitted nicely. And now I haven't got space to put this. I've got to take something out or get more shelves. Anyway, so
what are you, Maria? What's yours for this week? Your tool of the week.
Mine's an app, and I was going to plug it in and demonstrate it, and I thought, oh, it's too much tech for me. I didn't want to do that. A lot of people spending a lot of money on cameras. I know I spent a lot of money on cameras. And of course, you have got the option to use your mobile phone that has a great camera in it. Your iPhone has a great camera in it. The problem with most apps when you use your mobile phone as a webcam is that you have to use the phone wirelessly. And of course, the battery runs out or the connection isn't good. I have found an app where you can plug it into the computer. How cool is that?
Oh, you get a fancy camera.
So you've then got a fancy camera. So when I set this up, I can, and I have used it in the past, and it does work. So I can have more than one camera. So the app is called Shoot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really cheap. I think it was $3.99. I didn't double check, but I'm pretty sure it's $3.99. Really cheap. So you can turn your very good phone into a great webcam, plugged in, no issues with broadband because you're hardwired into your computer, which hopefully is hardwired into your broadband, and your battery won't run out. How cool is that? And it's the back camera, which is the good camera, because obviously the front camera isn't as good as the back camera, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
See, I'm so techie, the back camera.
No, and I tell you, I'm not sure if he uses this, but in terms of how, let's say as a speaker, how you would use like an iPhone style camera. There's a coach, really good coach called Taki Moore, Australian coach.
Yeah, love him.
And he is very nice because he's very visual in the way that he represents his ideas. And he gets these big, I don't know if you remember, like what was the papers, the butcher's paper, is that what they're called, when they would wrap up the meat and things, like the baker's paper, whatever it was. He would put that over his table, and then he would have his camera, his iPhone camera, looking down. Yeah. And then he would be sketching out the ideas, almost a bit like, I remember the acetates that we used to have maybe at schools and things, where the teacher would put things on acetate and it would get projected behind you. It's basically a modern day version of that. But what's really nice is that combination of the very analog writing things down and then the very technical, because we're talking about storytelling. People might forget what you say, but visuals, they remember visuals for a long time, and that's why things like cameras like that are so amazing.
Yeah, no, brilliant, really good. Although my handwriting is impossible, so I can't possibly do that.
Shoot out.
Now, listen, you're not going to be with me next week, are you? Because you've gone off. You've got 2 paid gigs, one after the other. You can't help me.
I'm sorry. I found another woman. I'm going to spend time with another woman next week. But I believe you're going to be in some very capable hands instead of me.
Well, you might get replaced. Watch out, because it's we're bringing a lady in, you see, and you've got to be careful.
Oh.
Penny Mallory has kindly offered to step in and will be helping me out. So we're going to have a bit of a girly day, although we have got a gentleman guest, so we'll balance things out. So yeah, so do come back, James.
I will. I'll definitely come back. So thanks everyone for joining us today, for your lovely comments, and for Lynne. Obviously, Lynne Franks has been a fantastic guest. If you want to find out more about this show, go to thisweekinevents.com. And my name's James Taylor, keynote speaker. I'm going to say speaker on creativity, innovation, and artificial intelligence.
And you know me. I'm everywhere. I'm always on social media. You know who I am. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.